CeeDee Lamb is done for the year, and it looks like the Cowboys are finally waving the white flag. What is up, Cowboys Nation, and welcome everyone into A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central here on Dallas On Demand Sports Talk Network with a lot more content coming your way. Check it out at adzsports.com/Dallas. And welcome everyone into the show. Big Thursday for Dallas. It is December 26th, and it seems like the Cowboys have waved the white flag. And I say that because today the Cowboys announced that CeeDee Lamb is not going to play Week 17. He is not going to play Week 18. The Cowboys are finally going to let number 88 chill out, finish the season, basically end it now for him, and just heal up. Because as I'm sure all of you know, he's been dealing with that shoulder injury since Week 9. I was counting with my fingers earlier today. That's 8 games that he played, including Week 9, with a very banged up shoulder. And we saw it every single week. The dude was in absolute pain, and he was fighting through it. And listen, the Cowboys were not mathematically eliminated, but they were eliminated all along. Like even in Week 9, and I remember talking about this on primetime back then, after the Falcons loss, we were talking about the fact that he had just injured it, right? So we didn't know how serious it was. We didn't know anything about that. But we asked ourselves, hey, why was City playing so much? You know, you had already lost Dak Prescott, and at that moment, we didn't know Dak was going to be out for the year. Didn't look good, but we didn't know it was going to be done for the season. And I remember thinking about CeeDee's play, and I remember being like, well, you know what? In a way, it was kind of a win now or never situation for the Cowboys, because it felt like if Dallas lost to the Falcons back in Week 9, that felt like the season. And we didn't even know Dak was going to be out for the year. But we did the math, and we were like, hey, listen, if the Cowboys lose Dak for 4 games, 5 games, the Cowboys just dug a hole that is too deep to climb out of. And that's what happened to the Cowboys. So it was crazy to me that he added another 7 games on top of that, CeeDee did. And while fighting, like he was going to war every single one of these games. So what changed from yesterday to today, or last week to this week? Obviously, the Cowboys are now mathematically done for the year. And CeeDee Lamb, before that happened, so after Week 15, he was talking about controlling what they could control. And he was talking about, forget about the combinations that we need across the NFL. We got to do our part first, and that was win out. The Cowboys needed to win out, and then they needed a ton of help from other NFL teams. And I think that by the time the Cowboys were going to play the Buccaneers on Sunday night, I think it was too late to kind of like change plans, right? I think at that point, CeeDee was like, you know what? We're here already. Just let me play. And we practiced the game plan all week. I know what we're doing. So why not go ahead and play one more game? But I think even at that point, the Cowboys knew, okay, this is CeeDee's last game of the season. Because I think the fact that they're done for the year and they're calling it now for CeeDee, I think this is them finally waving the white flag and saying, hey, you know what? We get it. We're done for the year. And that's that. And let me say hi right now to the chat. Welcome everyone into the show. Sorry I went on an opening rant there a little bit. But we've got Gregory on the show. We've got Katharina. We've got Toxic Tom. We've got James, who says it's a good idea to rest CeeDee Lamb. Toxic says shoulder injuries are a bitch. Painful, take a long time to heal. And you could see it on him. Especially if you're playing football. Like I think, you know, it's true that shoulder injuries are tough. But if you're playing football, like it's crazy how much your shoulder is involved, especially for a wide receiver that has to go up for the football to go get it, especially if Cooper Rush is your quarterback and you got to lower the shoulder as well to make contact. And every single week, CeeDee, it seemed like we were getting this close-up looks of CeeDee's face just being in pain totally. And I think that's because of the position that he plays, right? And the fact that the shoulder is so involved in everything that he does. Now, since the Cowboys are shutting down CeeDee Lamb for the rest of the year, I couldn't help but think, well, what's next? Because if this is the Cowboys waving the white flag, there are a series of decisions that I would like to see from the Cowboys. And I wanted to get into that on tonight's show. I want to start with saying I'm not sure I'm on board with what Mark is saying and what Gregory is saying. And Mark says, I would sit Micah Parsons down as well. And Gregory says, you know what? Sit all the starters out for the rest of the season. Toxic says, I disagree about sitting people. If there was ever a time to work on new things with a new scheme. That's a very important part of it, especially with Mike Zimmer, right? If your plan is to keep Mike Zimmer, and based on what we've seen from the Cowboys defense, I do believe that is what the front office will try to do, even if they move on from Mike McCarthy. I think Zimmer is not going anywhere. I'm not sure you want to sit these guys. Parsons, it might be different, but I honestly would make that decision totally based on, is he healthy or is he banged up? If he has an injury that could worsen, okay, I would sit him. But if he's ready to go, I honestly wouldn't do it personally. Plus, Micah Parsons will start punching coaches if they ask him to sit down for a Week 17 game. Doesn't matter if the Cowboys are done for the year. Micah will fight everybody on the organization because he wants to increase the sacks. He always talks about this. He wants to be great. He wants to go out there and play some football and be happy. So I don't think they're going to sit Micah Parsons down. What I would do, though, and I don't think you should sit everyone either. I wouldn't sit pretty much anyone on the team. If you're banged up and we got to take care of you, okay, go ahead and sit down, and that's it. We don't want you. We don't want the Marvin Overshown situation, right, where you start wondering about people's availability in 2025. Oh, I got something in my eye, and it's bothering me. Sorry about that. I just had to go in there very quickly. There you go. You don't want that risk to become a talking point. What I would do, though, is I want to see some of these young players. And I think one of the changes that should follow, and I've got 3 of them or 4, we'll see where this conversation takes us. But the number one change that I want to see is, let's just play Tyler Guyton, man. Let's just get Tyler Guyton at left tackle. I have struggled so much trying to figure out what the Cowboys' thinking is at left tackle. I know Tyler Guyton was becoming a little bit of a problem for the offense towards before he was benched, essentially. I know that manifested itself specifically in the form of false start penalties, holding penalties, illegal formation penalties, which he had twice in a game. And I understand that. I'm not sure that Tyler Guyton was bad enough to the point where you wanted to sit him so early in the season, even though your playoff odds looked so low, right? But I also think if Mike McCarthy is coaching for his darn job and he thinks Chuma Edoga gives him the best chance to win on Sunday, I can live with that because that is Mike McCarthy's call and he's fighting for his job, literally. So if he wants to go down that route, I'm fine with that. And it seems to me that that was what he was thinking because back in week 1, it was reported, or he said it, I think, himself in a press conference at some point in the season, he said something along the lines of, had Chuma Edoga been healthy, we would have started him week 1 over Tyler Guyton versus the Cleveland Browns. That is significant because that means that when Mike McCarthy knew the Cowboys had no margin for error anymore, he said, screw the rookie's development. I got to play my best guy. And you might be thinking, there is no way Chuma Edoga is better than Tyler Guyton. And listen, that's another debate. But if we're looking at it from Mike McCarthy's perspective, I think that's what's going on. But now that you're mathematically done for the year, these reps are valuable for Tyler Guyton. This is a guy that needs playing time. And if you want to talk about Trey Lance needing reps when you're talking about his development and you're talking about how important those are for him, then why are you not applying that logic to Tyler Guyton? Now, that's not to say they should play Trey Lance. That's another conversation. But I'm thinking about what Mike McCarthy said about reps back in the preseason. Now, you're not interested in giving Trey Lance reps because the guy is living in 2025. He's hitting free agency. He's gone. He's out of here. Tyler Guyton is not. Tyler Guyton is likely going to start for you. You invested a first-round draft pick in him. Just give him some reps. You're not going to get anything out of Chuma Edoga in the future. I would hope so, because that would mean you did an upgrade at tackle during the offseason through free agency or through whatever. I got to see Tyler Guyton on the field on Sunday and in week 18. The guy was always known to be a raw prospect that needed time to develop, but he doesn't that time in the bench. He needs it on the field. And again, if the Cowboys were alive in the playoff hunt and the Cowboys were hoping to make it as one of the last wild cards in the NFC, and Mike McCarthy wanted the best team out there, I would get it. We could have another conversation about who's the best guy, but I could understand that vision. But if Guyton is not starting on Sunday, we're going to need some answers. Because at that point, I'm thinking off the field issues. At that point, I'm thinking they just don't like the kid. They have a problem with his attitude. They don't like his approach to practice. They don't, sorry, man, what the heck? I'm clicking buttons out here. You can see how pissed I am about this. No, I'm just kidding. But at that point, that's what I would be thinking. Now, I don't have any proof about that. I'm making it up, essentially. But that's the only way it would make sense to me. The fact that Tyler Guyton doesn't play on Sunday. So I hope number 60 takes the field versus the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that's going to be an important test for him. And at this point, I don't get why you would play Chuma Edoga, honestly. But let's see, what do you guys think about this? Mark Aaron says, word on the street is Guyton needs to grow up. Listen, I don't know what people are saying out there. I've heard some stuff, right? Probably the same stuff that you guys have heard. But I haven't seen any report about it. I haven't seen any quotes officially about it. But if the guy doesn't play on Sunday, then the actions are what are telling you that, right? If Tyler Guyton is not starting on Sunday versus the Eagles, something has to be up. Are we in agreement with that? I think we are going to be, because it wouldn't make sense. You're done for the year. You're shutting down your star wide receiver. You're likely going to give some younger players some chances in other positions. If Guyton is not one of those guys, something's up. Absolutely something's up. We're going to see. We are going to see. Let's see here. Toxic says, I'm sorry, but what has he done to earn the starting left tackle position? A sunk cost. And that's an interesting point, because I agree that the sunk cost fallacy is always a thing, right? For those of you who are unfamiliar with the term, that basically just means you cannot play the guy just because you invested a first round pick on him. But I think this is not that. I think this is different from a sunk cost fallacy situation, because this is a situation where is Tyler Guyton going to develop more without the reps than he's with the reps? And aren't these true like freebie games for his development, in the sense that you're not sacrificing anything at all? And I would argue even, and I say the sacrificing thing because you're not sacrificing your chance to make it into the playoffs. If the Cowboys had said, hey, you know what? We're going to start Tyler Guyton since 2 weeks ago. And by the way, like, Tyler Guyton has not been starting for a while now, and the Cowboys were still alive. Or if this season had gone completely different and the Cowboys were like 9-8 or not 9-8, but say in the playoff hunt, and you can see that Tyler Guyton is clearly an issue in the lineup, and you're like, hey, you know what? They're just playing him because of the first round pick. Just got to get your best player in there. And that would be one thing. But right now, you're not fighting for anything. And Chuma Edoga basically has no upside for you, I think you gotta give him the reps. I think you gotta develop him because of what you're thinking for 2025. Because chances are Tyler Guyton is gonna start on your team in 2025. Now, if we get to 2025 and the guy's not good enough, then that's where the sunk cost fallacy thing comes into play for me, because it becomes, well, you cannot start him just because, just like you didn't start Massey Smith in 2023. It was Jonathan Hankins instead, and Massey Smith was a role player. But I think this is different. I think this is an opportunity to develop your guy, give him some reps, versus why. And I would argue, on top of this all, I would argue he's kind of done enough to get those reps in. I know about the penalties and everything, but you've also seen some of the traits you drafted him for on display on the field. If he was showing you none of that, I would be like, well, okay, he's a complete and utter failure. Just don't play him. But if we're being completely real, he's kind of been what you expected him to be when you picked him in the first round. Now, it is the Cowboys' fault that he's in that position up to a point, right? Where everyone and every scouting report that you read back in April was like, yep, Tyler Guyton has the tools. He's just not going to be a starting caliber tackle when he plays as a rookie, right? He's going to need some time. You asked him to start because you didn't have any tackles, basically. And I'm not trying to defend Tyler Guyton for his shortcomings, but I also kind of struggle to see, like, I've seen enough from him to be like, well, that's why they drafted him, but he just got to clean it up completely. And the way that you clean it up is getting those reps in, I would argue. But anyways, that's one of the things that I want to see. Now, Cowboys Chris here with the theory. Man, here's a theory from Cowboys Chris. He says, well, what if the plan is to move Guyton to the right side in the offseason? Oh, boy. Now, that's another conversation that I would like to have about Tyler Guyton. I think it is very possible that the Cowboys do this in 2025. I kind of want to know what you're basing that decision on if you're the Cowboys. And what I mean is this. Last year, or this year, this offseason, it kind of seems to me that the Cowboys made the Tyler Smith decision based on what they could get on the NFL draft. If you think about it, Cowboys went into the draft. They were interested in guards. They were interested in tackles, in centers. And it felt for a good while. And I think they even came out and said, but I don't remember at this point. It kind of felt like had the Cowboys picked a guard in the first round of the NFL draft, then they would have moved Tyler Smith to left tackle. But they drafted a tackle. They didn't draft someone who could play guard because Tyler Guyton cannot play guard. So they said, okay, then Tyler Smith stays at left guard. That makes some logic. But doesn't it kind of suck as well? Like, doesn't it suck that you're basing the decision on where you play an all-pro talent based on the rookie that you pick versus choosing where the all-pro talent plays based on the all-pro talent himself? And I want to see how that plays out with Tyler Guyton. If they make the move, is it a move that they make early on and then they sign a left tackle in free agency, or do they wait it out and maybe they get to the draft, and if they can get a tackle in the first round, then they move Tyler Guyton, and if not, then I don't know what they do with the whole setup for the O-line. We'll see. But that's an interesting point from Cowboys Chris. They could be planning that for Tyler Guyton. We'll see. His future is just so blurry as of right now. But anyways, let's move on, though, and let's talk more about this Cowboys team. Another change that I would like to see follow is you got to play the guy you traded your forward rounder for. I know I said this on yesterday's video, and I know some people might find it repetitive, but Jonathan Mingo, since they traded for him, has been targeted 11 times in 6 games. That's under 2 targets per game. And he's got 2 catches. Jonathan Mingo has shown you nothing. And I said this yesterday. I think the Cowboys, they come out and they say, hey, we don't regret trading a 4th rounder for Trey Lance. What do you mean? We don't regret it at all. Of course they do. Of course they're lying to us when they say they don't regret it. How can you not regret that trade when Trey Lance didn't even beat Cooper Rush? And you probably brought him in to gain some leverage against Dak Prescott, and you still had to pay $60 million per year, plus a ton of guarantees and all that. But anyways, they're going to end up regretting the Mingo trade, it looks like. And it was an upside kind of pick, so maybe they want to see how the offseason plays out. But at this point, you kind of run out of benefit of the doubt points here. If the Cowboys were winning all of these trades, I could be like, hey, listen, the thing is they were not thinking about 2024 when they made that trade. They're thinking about who he can be with 1 year under the Cowboys coaching regime during the offseason. When you don't even know who's going to be your coaching staff in 2025. You don't know now probably. You didn't know in week 9, which is when you traded for him. So, yeah, it's tough to give them the benefit of the doubt. It really is tough to do that. I want to see some Jonathan Mingo in action. I want to see a game where he plays 80% of the snaps or something. I don't know if they're going to give that to him now, because even though CeeDee's not going to play, I'm assuming Brandon Cooks is going to play. I would argue Brandon Cooks has motivation to play because he's going to be shopping for a team next year. You're going to want to play Jalen Tolbert. You're going to want to play Ryan Flournoy. Maybe even Jalen Brooks. I want to see how much Jonathan Mingo goes out there and plays. If we, similar to the Tyler Guyton thing, if we don't see a lot of Jonathan Mingo, then goddamn, then I don't know where to draw hope from. Toxic says, Mo, I'd rather have my 4th rounder back. Man, that would be cool if you could have that refund. Brett says Mingo was a bad trade. It's not off to a hot start. It really is not. Mark says trading for Trey Lance and Jonathan Mingo has Jerry Jones written all over him. Listen, there are several things that might have gone on with the Jonathan Mingo trade. Number 1, best case scenario, all right, is the Cowboys front office. And I'm not thinking about the Jones now. I'm thinking about Will McClay, and I'm thinking about the scouts. There's a possibility that the Cowboys really like Jonathan Mingo. Like they were in love with him during their draft process. And that they thought to themselves, if we can get him for a 4th rounder, we'll turn him into a superstar. Superstar might be too strong of a word, but you get me. That's scenario number 1. Scenario number 1, you have some hope that they're going to make Mingo work in 2025 and then some more in 2026 because the guy still has 2 more years under contract, which is a positive. And one of the biggest reasons why he cost you a 4th rounder, by the way. That's one of the biggest reasons that he has 2 more years under his contract. Now, scenario number 2. And this is one that I would absolutely hate. But scenario number 2 is where the Jones were like, we cannot be sellers. At the trade deadline, we got to try. We got to show the fans that we are trying. Everyone is jumping off the chip because Dak Prescott told them to, and surprisingly, everyone listened. People are jumping off the bandwagon. Well, let's get us a receiver. That'll get them talking. And you know what? In fact, spend more than other teams are spending on their guys, so they think that we got something special here. Obviously, I'm making that up at the end, but you know what I'm saying. Like, this could have been a trade where the Cowboys were like, let's give people some hope. Let's bring someone in here who provides some hope. Obviously, that backfired on them because everyone made fun of them because a lot of people were like, wait, what? The Cowboys were buyers and they bought Jonathan Mingo? What? But yeah, I would much rather it be scenario A. It would be more promising for the Cowboys. But I cannot tell you for sure. I really don't know what they're going to be doing soon. But anyways, man, tough stuff. So yeah, I would like to see more of Jonathan Mingo. And then I have a few like extra ones. One of them is more crazy and more unlikely. But I would love to see Hunter Lipke getting some carries, man. It's crazy to me how many carries he has this year. And I've seen enough from Zeke. I've seen enough from Ezekiel Elliott since early in the season, honestly. But Hunter Lipke had 6 carries against the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? And then he had what else? No, 2 carries before against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Had 1 versus San Francisco, 1 versus the Falcons, 3 versus the Giants. He's got 0 carries since then. He also barely has any sort of targets. He has like 3 targets in the last 3 weeks, 4 targets in the last 5 weeks. And it's crazy to me how they just stopped looking at Hunter Lipke. Now, you can argue that he has some ball security problems. As Cammy is here in the chat, that might be true. But I'm more or less in the boat of, yeah, I'm done with Zeke. Let's see if number 40 can figure some stuff out so he can reach a new level of versatility. Because Hunter Lipke as a fullback is not that bad, right? We've seen some stuff from him as a receiver. We saw him run some corner routes early in the year, and that was wild. And we got excited that, hey, maybe they are going to use Hunter Lipke as a weapon. And then they either forgot about it or by design, they said, we're not going to do it anymore. But they stopped using Hunter Lipke. I would like to see some more Hunter in the Cowboys offense. But I'm totally convinced that we're not going to see any of that. So I think we might get Guyton at left tackle. I think we might get Mingo at a wide receiver. I just don't know about Hunter Lipke getting carries. That's just a wild dream of mine. And then there's some smaller stuff like I would like to see more Marshawn Kneeland. I think Marshawn Kneeland should get a lot of reps on Sunday versus the Eagles, right? I want to see, Marius Leofau is going to play anyways, right? But I wonder if somehow, some way, we see some of the younger defensive backs on the field as well. Maybe Izzy Mukwamu, I don't know that he goes under the younger category or the returning category because he's likely going to be gone. Backup safeties are banged up. We'll see if Juanje Thomas returns for this game. And if Juanje is ready to go, then I want to see him play. I want to see him get some reps in. We'll see, man. We'll see. Other than that, though, before we get out of here, some quick thoughts, though, on the game versus the Eagles. Jalen Hurts looks like he's not going to be playing. The betting spread was at 11 last week. Yesterday, it was at 9.5. So the Eagles were 9.5-point favorites. Today, it's down to 7 points now. I wrote about it in the morning. It was at 7.5. Now it's at 7. So I absolutely think Jalen Hurts is not playing. I think it's going to be Kenny Pickett, who is also on the injury report, by the way. And it's weird because they have Tanner McKee, the second-year quarterback, under Pickett, and they signed Ian Book to the practice squad. So they signed a quarterback, and I cannot help but wonder, do they have questions about Pickett? But it looks like Pickett is going to start. They can still run the football on you. They've got a very strong offensive line. They have very strong defense. That's what worries me. I think the Cowboys defense can come out with its head on fire and make some plays and put a stop to the Eagles, believe it or not. But I don't know if the Cowboys with no CeeDee Lamb can keep up with a offense that can consistently run the football in a very physical way and kind of attack the weaknesses, really, for the Cowboys defense. But we'll see how that goes. I think the Eagles are going to win this one. I think somewhere along the lines of 22-16, something like that. Kind of like a weird low-score scoreboard with the quarterbacks out and CeeDee Lamb out. I told A to Z Sports writer Kelsey Kramer, I said 23-16 Eagles, and that was before the Jalen Hurts news. So let's say 20-16, something like that. Maybe Hurts can play, but I'm working with the theory that he won't play. And if he plays, I don't think it will change that much in terms of the scoreboard. Maybe a touchdown more or something like that. But we'll see. I think the Eagles win it, unfortunately. I know it works for the Cowboys draft positioning, but I will always say Eagles win, unfortunately. It doesn't matter who they're playing, or anything like that. But we'll see. Now, Mark says, might as well start cutting guys that can't play. Zeke, Cook still on the roster. So Dalvin Cook, funny thing about Dalvin Cook, he was elevated twice from the Cowboys practice squad to the 53-man roster. Now, NFL rules allow for you to be elevated 3 times before they got to promote you to the 53-man roster. Cowboys never used the third one. It's very odd to me. They never were like, you know what, let's call up Dalvin Cook again. Never did that. That's weird. And I don't know. This wouldn't surprise me, okay? It wouldn't surprise me that the Cowboys would elevate him a third time. And then they didn't want to do the signing him to the 53-man roster. Because you know that costs more, right? It wouldn't surprise me if that was a thinking there. If it was like, as long as we don't need to pay this guy some extra money, then he's fine in the practice squad. Not that he was anything special, mind you, but I think there's something there. That's my theory, at least. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great weekend. Thank you for joining ADC Sports Dallas Primetime this Thursday night. Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of the holiday break if you are still on holiday break. And I'll see you on Sunday, 8 p.m. Central. Bye-bye. Toxic Tom says, Lord, we move like an equity firm, not a football team. Just think about it and let me know if you agree with me or not. Think about it. Bye-bye.